So the feminine structure is considered a very controversial subject, right? But it really isn't. It's just that there's a group of lazy, insecure women that are all too keen to shout the term thick the moment that they gain a bit of body fat. I was going to say mass now, but it's really body fat. And they know it's noticeable. So just to validate themselves, they'll use that term to avoid any oncoming awkward conversations that might be confrontational. And thick is fat though. Yes, it is. It's especially noticeable once you have this, or once you don't have any foundation of muscle tone in place. Even if you're one of those people that are, one of those women that are specifically apparently blessed with having wider hips, it's just unfortunate that it's mostly widely accepted because, well, men are not too quick. Men are so easy sometimes that they will validate anything like that. Because, well, that's the closest, it's the closest they will get to the best that they will ever have. But it's really just a group of women that don't really take their physical well-being too seriously. So fitness as an industry has always been booming. Especially since those early days it started to air on the telly with those group classes, those group aerobic classes where everybody was wearing those white trainers, those thick woolly socks, those full body tights and the headbands. But that wasn't really masculine enough for most, which is also about the same time that the bodybuilding scene started to gain some better media coverage. So now it seems that the powers that be started to take note of this, the influence of this industry, and the benefits that could possibly put them out of business as well. I mean, think of all the industries that would go out of business as a result of people, women in particular, growing more independent of not just their medications, but their need for validation from others. Once an industry teaches people to be independent like that, it's really hard to control the population. And when I say it's harder to control, I mean especially that it's harder to apparently make money off them. And this means that everybody that has been relying on this industry, the pharmaceutical industry in particular, like certain doctors have, would also be exposed. And that's why at the beginning of this whole, you know what, somewhere along the line the gyms have been closed and demonized as well, as with the label of being super spreaders. Typically the most well ventilated of public spaces, with sanitary sprays all over the place, literally on every corner, suddenly became a super spreader. Not just a super spreader, a place you shouldn't be if you want to survive. I found that weird. But if women gain got, if women got wind of the possibilities, the potential of this industry to give them the things that they needed. A lot of these industries would just go bankrupt, and we just wouldn't exist anymore. So, as a woman, controlling your body fat percentage is very important. Yes, you may have a bigger range to play with than men, but it's the moment you teeter on those little edges, the ends of that range, it's when it becomes a bit dangerous for you. You can either become too thin, skinny and unhealthy, seemingly anorexic, or you would grow in size, and that would mean that you would look more masculine, because, well, size is seen as a form of dominance. So by now it's obvious that your body fat percentage is really important to control as a woman. Your muscle mass becomes the next important step. And it's really a shame that most people have been conditioned to believe that they won't be able to add mass to certain parts of their body, their glutes in particular as women. But that's the problem that arises once you not just accept what media has been telling you or feeding you. It also happens when you decide to join a gym and do it yourself, or you find some genetic workout off the internet has been designed for someone else. Meanwhile, there's an abundance of other factors that need to be balanced out. Like the long term has to be taken into account. Chronic injuries have to be avoided, acute injuries as well. You also have to make sure that those walls, those plateaus aren't hit more than once. Otherwise you just bang your head against that wall. Therein lies the value of a good PT. So the glutes make a difference, yes, but it's really about the proportions, the ratios that you have spread out, the distribution of weight, of mass across the lower, the middle and the upper body. And on that point, there's also a group of women that are keen to just accept their lack of mass in the lower body in return for staying in a small dress size. Which is also a form of giving up, in my opinion. But the big point, the major point that I was trying to get to was that the thighs, the mass in the thighs, both the hamstring and the quad, even though there were other muscles that you need to take into account as well. It's probably a bit too complicated to keep this in a short video. But the biggest point that I wanted to get to is the thighs. The thighs can easily be the quickest and most easiest ticket into the realms of femininity. Fortunately, it hasn't been conditioned into most women as an impossibility. But once you take those muscles seriously, those hamstrings, those quads, obviously the stabilizers around it as well, you could essentially build up a frame that could rival those plastic surgery infested women that are seen now as role models in this day and age, especially with the right prescription of exercises. Because while most women don't really take their physical well-being too seriously, even if they were blessed with a decent shape, as most would consider is a decent shape, where they have wider hips, for example, to the trained eye, it's very easy to see that there's a lack of muscle mass in the thighs. So if you add on to that the thin waist, because you've controlled your body fat percentage, and if you add on to that as well the limitation of the hypertrophy in the upper body muscles, or even the atrophy of certain of those muscles as well, you could really achieve a shape that many don't have. Add on to that the fact that you won't look like someone that has had body fat or some other creature's fat injected into your body. You will look natural, you will look like someone that actually worked for what they have. And that's actually intimidating for most. Think about it. Blessings.